Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this evening on how to debate diplomatically on controversial topics in Model UN and the real world. I'll give everyone just a second to join us. I'm so excited to have everyone here today. I already see over 100 people joining us from all over the world. Before we get started, I'd love to get an idea of who we have here with us today. So if you don't mind, if you could please type into the chat for us and introduce yourself and share your first name, where you're from, if you're a parent, student, or MUN advisor, and also if you have ever experienced undiplomatic behavior during a Model UN simulation. Please don't call out the specific conference or the specific student, but if you've ever experienced that, feel free to share in the chat as well. I'd love to get an idea of who we have here with us today. Great, I see we have a student from Park Tutor. We've had many students from Park Tutor at our conferences over the past month. Great to hear. We have a student from North Carolina. Yeah, you've definitely experienced some undiplomatic and rude behavior. Students from Texas and Peru. Hi, Jose, welcome. Second time doing Model UN, great. We have students from Greece and Indiana and Mexico City and London, wow. And New Jersey. Wow, we've got a great group of people here from all over the world. Please feel free to continue introducing yourself in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what you can expect here tonight. But I'm very excited to see people from New Zealand and Indonesia and Honduras and all over. Welcome. We're so excited to have all of you here today. So just a little reminders about our format for tonight. If you could all please follow a little bit of Zoom etiquette and keep yourself muted at all times. We have a lot of people on the call today and we want it to run smoothly. And also please keep your video off during this whole time. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box and we will be able to answer those as we go. We've got some great student leaders that will be responding to questions. And also at the end, we'll be doing a Q&A. So thank you all. I know you've probably had a lot of time on Zoom in the last few months, but I just wanted everyone to have an idea of what to expect. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. Like I said, my name is Laura Beth Goldsmith, and I'm the Executive Director of Partnerships at Best Delegate, which basically means I have the incredible job of getting to help students and teachers and parents and even governments and the United Nations itself empower students through Model United Nations. And I've been doing Model UN for the past 15 years, and Model UN has helped me to develop my own confidence and public speaking skills and negotiation skills. And I'm really passionate about this incredible activity because I've seen it transform so many students' lives and help them gain confidence and really discover who they are. And so I'm very excited to have all of you here today because one thing that I'm very passionate about is learning about different people and places and cultures and doing that in a diplomatic manner. And I went to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. I studied political science, and now I'm also studying at Harvard University, and I've taken a lot of coursework on advanced negotiation and conflict resolution, and we've worked some of those lessons into this content as well on how to be more diplomatic. But now I want to introduce you to the rest of the team that we have here with us this evening. Next up is your Model UN coach, Georgina. Georgina, would you please introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you so much, Laura Beth. So as Laura Beth mentioned, hi, my name is Georgina, and I'll be serving as your MUN coach over the course of this webinar. So a little bit more about me. I'm currently one of the program managers with Best Delegate. But in terms of my Model UN backstory, I got into Model UN first off because I had a crazy fear of public speaking. But aside from that, I really wanted to learn more about the world around me, about different perspectives and about different countries. And that knowledge inspired me to attend Georgetown as a university student and to study international politics to continue to gain those global experiences and to learn about the rest of the world. From there, I was inspired to both spend a year working in India and serve with the Peace Corps in Thailand. So Model UN has shown me what the world around me truly holds and what all of these different perspectives can do to inspire me to both work with others and be a better diplomat myself, which is why I'm super excited to be here and to help to show all of you diplomatic skills over the course of today.
Thank you very much, Georgina. I also want to introduce to everyone some incredible additional people that we have here today, including our student leaders. We have Jess, Michaela, and Hannah with us, and I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves briefly. Jess, would you please introduce yourself to the group?
Of course. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Jess Newberg. I'm a student, junior that goes to the Madeira School, and I'm from Reston, Virginia. It's a little bit west of DC. I've been doing Model UN for about 4 years, and I think that Gio really covered everything in terms of why I got into Model UN. And I would have to say the most undiplomatic behavior that I've ever seen at a convention was a fellow delegate deciding to throw their chair in anger during a conference. So I am very much hoping that this will help all of you to make sure that does not happen within your Model UN clubs or conferences.
Thank you very much, Jess. Michaela, would you please introduce yourself as well?
Of course. Hi, my name is Michaela. I am in 11th grade and I study in South Florida. I've only been doing Model UN for about a year now, but I got into it just like everybody else did. I really love diplomacy and learning about the world. And I have a student leadership position at my Model UN, on my Model UN team at my school. And the most undiplomatic behavior I have probably seen has been quite frequently since Model UN has moved on to Zoom. And it's a lot of people just going off topic in the chat and continuing their speeches in the chat when they should just be saying them in the mod or unmod. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela. And Hannah, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a 9th grader from Maryland, and I've been doing Model UN since 6th grade, but I got into a leadership position in my middle school in 7th and 8th grade, and now I'm looking forward to doing one in the future at my high school. I'd have to say that the most undiplomatic thing I've seen at a committee was somebody telling everyone in our entire committee that they were all stupid during one of their moderated caucus speeches. And it's safe to say that that helped no one, and no one wanted to work with them after that. So I hope that this can help you all know how to avoid situations like that. So
absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. And after today, hopefully there will be no chair throwing or name calling or messaging in the chat inappropriately, and we can help to create some awesome diplomatic leaders. And with that, I want to introduce one more special guest. We have Kevin Felix Chan, Best Delegate's co-founder and CEO. Kevin, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Kevin Felix Chan, which makes my initials KFC. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Best Delegate. And I just want to thank all of you and show my appreciation that you're all here today to take this time, because I remember as a student just staying after school doing Model UN, and that was such a valuable thing. And for you to take time after your school day to be here to learn how to debate diplomatically, which is a huge issue in the Model UN community. I'm hoping that you will step out of this and go back and lead your communities, lead your conferences, lead your schools, because your leadership is what we need these days. So thank you for being here, and I'm excited to learn along with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin. And with that, I want to get everybody on the same page about what to expect by 8 o'clock tonight, or if you're watching this back after the fact. Here's what you can expect during our webinar. One thing we're going to cover is we're going to show you the step-by-step guide to debate diplomatically so that you can go back and reference this and continue to learn. We're also going to have a demonstration of students showing what not to do in a diplomatic debate. And many of these things, unfortunately, happen way too often in Model UN and the real world. And then we're going to learn the key elements to becoming a diplomat and what does it really mean to debate diplomatically. And then we will have the chance to watch our students and our Model UN coach embody Model UN diplomacy and show you what a great debate looks like on the same topic. And finally, we will also be sharing for you what are some of the exciting programs that Best Delegate has coming up, and give you the chance to see how you can put your debate skills to the practice with our Model UN teams and upcoming conferences. So without further ado, I want to talk about how to debate diplomatically in Model UN and in the real world. And in just a second, we're going to show you guys a video. And this may be all too familiar for many of you. This is in fact from the first presidential debate in the United States. And if you could please refrain from sharing your political opinions in the chat, but if you have an opinion about what's happening during the debate and whether or not it's diplomatic or undiplomatic, you can feel free to share that in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and share just a short 1-minute video for us to frame what should or shouldn't debating diplomatically look like.
There's immunity today.
Please pardon the commercial. Just 1 second. This is a pop-up that just happened, and we will get started in just a moment. But again, please share in the chat what you think of the debate quality.
And I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer. Go ahead. We're saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now. I am,
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now,
Well,
Vice President,
Chris,
no.
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
And he stood up.
No,
He stood up
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion,
Sir,
if you
that
get rid
is
of
absolutely you know what? You're not
Well,
true.
you're on tape doing it.
You're going to
You're on
have
tape.
true, gentlemen. I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but it
on
seems
tape.
to be. Why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
I don't know about you, but I was incredibly frustrated when I was watching that debate just a few months ago. And I think that it was not a great example of how people can and should debate diplomatically. And in fact, unfortunately, this type of undiplomatic behavior is all too common, not just in the United States, but around the world. And in the year 2020, we saw a lot of undiplomatic debates happening. And it was hard to come by good examples of diplomacy at times in the international politics, as well as in domestic politics. Can anybody tell me what this is a photo from? Please feel free to drop it in the chat if you know. Hint, it has to do with this evening for anybody that is a news junkie and up to date on what's happening in American politics. Yeah, so this is a photo that has to do with the Georgia Senate election. And this was a debate that was supposed to happen between David Perdue and John Ossoff. And one of the candidates chose not to show up to the debate. So in order to have diplomatic debates, we need people to show up. We need people to take the time to have a productive debate about the issues. And in 2021, we really hope to see that happen because there are so many real problems that we need to be addressing, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. And this picture is from a virtual meeting of ASEAN discussing the pandemic. And I hope that we have a lot more diplomatic behavior in the real world and in Model UN over the coming years, because we have a lot of important problems that we need to solve as a global community. And with that, I want to show everyone our How to Debate Diplomatically guide. Some of you may have already checked this out. We sent it out over email, but I want everyone to get an idea of what's in this guide so that you can refer back to it after this call. So this guide is on how to debate diplomatically, and Kana dropped into the chat the link if you want to open it up as well. And it has a lot of great resources for you. It opens up by talking about that same debate we were just watching and that US presidential election. And it talks about the personal attacks that were happening and the undiplomatic lies that were shared and the number of times there were interruptions and rules broken. And many of the things that went wrong in politics and in diplomacy, and also how we can make diplomacy go right. In this guide, we talk about the 8 key elements to become a diplomat, including defining your non-negotiables, implementing rules of debate, picking credible sources, listening, organizing your strategy, making others feel comfortable, avoiding attacking, and taking time to reflect. We'll go through all of these in detail, but essentially this guide breaks down all of these different tools for you and gives examples of what you can and should or shouldn't do to help you really excel in Model UN. And I recommend also checking it out. There's a lot of links to example videos of politicians and of students. And so you can find that link again in the chat if you want to check it out later. And this guide also has a great checklist for facilitators, for teachers, or for students that are chairing a simulation on how to go about running a Model UN simulation, and for students on how to debate diplomatically, from learning the basics of diplomacy to preparing for a debate and for joining a debate. So I definitely recommend you check out this guide, and the content that we're going to go over tonight complements this same piece. So now I would like us to go ahead and dive into what Model UN really looks like. And so we're going to get started with the student demonstration. And this demonstration is going to be on the topic of gender equality in the workforce. And this could be a discussion that might happen in a committee on UN women, for example. So I'm going to turn things over to Georgina, and this is in fact a demonstration on what not to do in a Model UN diplomatic debate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura Beth. So with that, we'll begin with our first demonstration. And this reflects a lot of the elements of non-diplomatic behavior that we've seen over the course of various committees, as well as throughout politics in general. Now, I'm going to request that for our participants, over the course of this demonstration, if you could actually refrain from posting in that chat box. Because as you'll see, our student leaders are also going to use that chat box to demonstrate a few additional aspects of that undiplomatic behavior. So I recommend that all of you listen to our students, as well as keep track of what's going on in that chat to get a full picture of what these undiplomatic behaviors might look like. So with that, delegates, are there any points or motions on the floor for me at this time? Any points or motions? And I'm looking for a 2-minute moderated caucus with a 30-second speaking time. Yes, Delegate of the United States.
Motion for a 2-minute moderated caucus with a 30-second speaking time on the subject of increasing opportunities for women.
That is absolutely in order. All those in favor of this moderated caucus, hit that yes check for me at this time. All those opposed, hit that no X. Awesome, this motion clearly passes. With that, Delegate of the United States, you've got 30 seconds whenever you're ready.
The U.S. believes that it is absolutely crucial to fund the development of technological developments in order to promote the increasing of opportunities for women in the workforce. We believe that funding technological improvements is much more important than implementing policies such as maternity leave, as by funding technological improvements, especially in areas such as healthcare and specifically fields such as doing laundry, cooking, cleaning, etc. We will be able to prevent distractions that typically prevent women from being able to succeed in the workplace, and will give them more time to be able to do these critical tasks while still allowing them to focus on if they have the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of the United States. All those wishing to speak next, throw up a raise hand function for me at this time. Saudi Arabia, you got 30 seconds. You're muted.
That was part of it, guys. I don't know what our Western counterparts are on, but we do not need them butting their heads in our business. Saudi Arabia is doing just fine. Women don't need the same rights as men, and gender issues just don't exist. We gave them the right to drive and the right to vote. What more could you want? So you can send even more soldiers into our land. We don't want to associate with you, and honestly, I don't even want to be here. Peace out, dummies.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. All the delegates wishing to speak next, raise a hand for me at this time. Delegate of France, you're recognized for 30 seconds.
I would just like to say, first of all, what is Saudi Arabia even saying? Everything was complete nonsense. This is such outdated information, and honestly, they just sound so stupid.
France, sit down.
You are an Eastern country. What are you doing trying to speak on this issue?
Wow.
Thank you very much, Delegate of France. With that, there is one speaker remaining in this moderated caucus. All those wishing to speak, raise a hand for me at this time. Delegate of Saudi Arabia, you're recognized for 30 seconds.
Okay, France, you need to sit down. With a face like that one, I don't think you have the right to say anything to me, actually. You shouldn't even be here. You're not on the same playing field as me. And those opinions, personally, are just horrible. Saudi Arabia is a better country than France anyway, and no one here cares about your opinion. So I think you should just sit down.
They're taking away rights from women. Can you hear this?
All right, with that, I believe that this moderated caucus has elapsed. Let's just take a moment. Clearly, there were a number of examples of incredibly undiplomatic behavior that took place over the last few minutes. If any of you would like to share in the chat box, what did you notice that was undiplomatic just then? And what behaviors do you think should be worked on looking forward? Which is exactly what this webinar will cover as we move through the remainder of these demonstrations.
Absolutely. I see people mentioning speaking out of turn and insults and interruptions and distractions and rude comments and insults at people rather than focusing on policies. And these are absolutely not the things that we want to see happen. These are our student leaders, so we allowed them to go off the rails for you to see some of the things that often go wrong in Model UN. But instead of being undiplomatic, we want to focus on helping you become a diplomat. And so we've created a great acronym to help you become a diplomat that can debate more effectively. The D stands for defining your non-negotiables. The next step is to implement rules of debate. Then you're going to want to pick credible sources and listen to yourself and the other delegates in the conversation that's happening. The next thing you'll want to do is organize your strategy. And you'll also want to make others feel comfortable, avoid attacking other delegates, and take time to reflect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about each of these in detail and how you can implement them. The first one is defining your non-negotiables. What are non-negotiables? They're essentially things that are not up for debate because they are your core values or core beliefs that you're setting up with the debate in order to create an inclusive environment. And these are specifically boundaries that should not be crossed in any circumstance over the course of your Model UN simulation or in real life. And these values, these non-negotiables, need to be set before a conference happens. And they essentially create a contract between everyone participating in order to create a positive environment. And this will ensure that you can actually focus on debating and on the issues rather than on attacks and on things that really go off the rails. At Best Delegate, for example, our core values are framed around global citizenship, which is something we believe strongly in. Our core values include human rights and equality, and these are simply not up for debate. We are willing to debate about issues, but we are not willing to debate about some of these fundamental beliefs that are across the board agreed upon in our debates. We also feel strongly that no individual should be discriminated upon for their beliefs, for their religion, for their sexual orientation, for where they're from, or for any other factors. We also understand and appreciate that people have different points of views, and we try to engage across different cultures and communities. And we believe that we take actions and that our words and our behaviors matter. And so when we have a debate, we want to focus on the issues rather than on our non-negotiables, which we believe everyone should be on the same page about when we are participating in a simulation. So I want to go a little bit deeper into that. What does that really mean? Here's an example. So you guys just saw in the chat, and I've also got a copy up here on the screen of non-negotiable boundaries being crossed during a simulation. And for example, in this chat, you can see the USA calling out another delegate and saying their opinion sucks, or another delegate saying that another delegate is good looking, or talking about being bored, or wanting to, tell someone to shut up. These are all things that are undiplomatic and cross the non-negotiable boundaries of treating people with respect and fundamental, equality when they're participating. And so delegates should have been more diplomatic and focused on policy rather than on people. And we'll show an example of that a bit later on. And the chair also should prevent this from happening and should pause if things start to run off the rails in order to ensure that a conversation actually happens that is focused on the topic rather than on the people that are representing the different countries. So in addition to your non-negotiables, you also want to make sure that you talk about rules. And Model UN has some standard rules. It deviates based on what conference you're at, but it's important to have rules. And the UN itself has a set of rules and guidelines that enable them to foster conversations that are more prone to have positive outcomes. And when you run simulations, you can use parliamentary procedure, but you need some additional rules in order to make sure that you have positive and productive and respectful conversations and that your non-negotiables aren't crossed. So I'm going to give an example of these, and please feel free to use them at your conferences as well. So some things that you should do are make sure you provide equal opportunities for everyone to speak. Have a student leader help monitor the debate, especially the chat, which can go off the rails in virtual Model UN, oftentimes too quickly. You should maintain decorum if you're the chair or the student leader, or even as a participant. And you should orient the discussion around collaborative solutions. Sometimes there might be fringe issues that really aren't going to move the conversation forward and you're not going to get agreement on. You want to focus on areas where you can make progress and have positive outcomes. You also want to make sure that your rules ensure that you're open and unbiased if you're chairing and leading a conversation. And you want to set the expectation of an inclusive learning environment where everyone feels comfortable to participate. Let's also talk about what you don't want to do. When setting the rules, you shouldn't allow participants to interrupt each other like you saw during the demonstration. You should not make sure that you're entertaining biased, disrespectful, or hurtful comments. You want to cut that off. We're not talking about people individually. We're focused on issues. You also want to make sure that discussions are focused on the topics, because oftentimes when things get personal or off the rails is when they're vague or unrelated to the topic at hand. And you want to allow less formal debate to really dissolve. You want it to stay formal enough that you have a productive conversation. And so if you use those rules of debate and you have those negotiables in place, those non-negotiables, you're going to have a better outcome. And I'm going to turn it back over to Georgina that she's going to share a bit more about how to become a diplomat.
Awesome. So as Laura Beth just mentioned, if you define those non-negotiables and implement those rules of debate, you should instinctively and in theory have the foundation for a positive and a sustainable discussion. And so these next few steps focus also on how to step into the shoes of those diplomats and how to ensure that you can truly embody those perspectives and those policies, which all starts with picking credible sources, both when considering designing your committee and designing your topic, as well as considering how to embody the country that you're assigned to represent. So in terms of choosing those credible sources, as I think we're all pretty acutely aware, there is a lot of misinformation out there these days, from all of those push notifications that you probably receive on a daily basis, as well as on Twitter or on Facebook or on TikTok. You probably see a million different ads and news articles. The United Nations has called this an infodemic of misinformation, and it's made it incredibly difficult to distinguish between what's fact, what's fiction, and what's opinion. So to become a diplomat, your goal should always be to verify that information you're using, to ensure that you're able to fully step into the shoes of that country that you're representing. And facts and evidence show that today, using verified information has the ability to change positive outcomes and create those positive opinions. So it's so important to use those credible sources. Now, here's an example of the sorts of sources that you should be avoiding, and the sorts of sources that come up with those push notifications on Facebook and with all of those different types of ads that you see on a daily basis. Now, take the example on the left. Those are all sources of misinformation. So the lower example has the headline, "Don't buy China story. The coronavirus may have leaked from a lab." As a delegate, if you went into a committee and used that as a source and used that as your source of information, it would negatively impact your ability to work with others and negatively impact your ability to be diplomatic on that topic. The example on the right shows a more credible source. So those COVID-19 FAQs from the United Nations. So how do you go about defining those credible sources and ensuring that you have them? This all comes from searching for the right information. So we've got this great tactic called power search, which allows you to ensure that every website you wind up with is a .org, a UN website, or a .gov, or a .edu. So as you can see from the example on the left, a typical Google search will yield a million results, including ads and biased sources. Through using a power search, so cite:(UN.org) and your country and your topic. You guarantee that every source is a UN source and has a positive sense of information. So beyond picking those credible sources, it's also so important to listen, because without listening, you can't understand other people's policies, and you can't empathize with where those other opinions might be coming from and come up with those sustainable solutions together. Throughout Model UN committees, there are a number of opportunities to listen to others. So in terms of listening, always take notes during the speakers list. Figure out what those different policies might be and what other countries truly believe in when it comes to this topic. Use that to build solution-oriented conversations during those moderated caucuses, which you can't do if you don't listen to the speeches before you and listen to those other opinions. And it's through listening that you're able to collaborate and to write those comprehensive documents that work for all and create those universal solutions. So the TLDR, don't waste time when other people are speaking. Instead, use every available opportunity to learn from others through listening. And with that, I'll throw it back over to Laura Beth for organizing our strategy.
So feel free to drop into the chat. How many of you either enjoy playing the game of chess or have recently watched The Queen's Gambit? I know there might be a lot of chess fans out there, and sometimes it's important to think about how Model UN is a lot like other activities such as chess. So in chess, you have to think about the moves that you're going to make before you get started with the game. I see we have a lot of people that enjoy it. In chess, you also want to think about what your opening move is going to be and what your strategy is going to be. And the same thing is true in Model UN. Before you step into a committee, you should have a plan, and you should respect and reflect on what your strategy might be. You should plan your opening speech with inclusive and intentional language and solutions. You should consider how to respond to others and suggest positive alternatives. And you should also brainstorm some universal solutions that could be implemented beyond your country. And an interesting fact, I don't know how many of you know this or not, but the United Nations doesn't actually vote on the majority of resolutions. The majority of resolutions are adopted by consensus, which generally means that no country feels strongly enough to have to force a vote on the issue, and instead it is adopted by consensus. And so this essentially means that you want to be thinking about ideas that you're likely to get a lot of support on of other countries to move the conversation forward on whatever your topic might be. So think, listen, and go in with a plan. And remember to make others feel comfortable. It's important to really make sure that people feel comfortable, whether it's in Model UN or in the real world, because you really want to make sure that you're fostering a good environment for a discussion. How can you go about this? Well, for starters, this is the fundamentals of diplomacy. Diplomacy is essentially the skill in handling affairs without arousing hostility. And I don't know about you, but I frequently see diplomats not always achieve this objective. At times, there are great examples of this, such as Antonio Gutierrez and the work that he's doing with the United Nations. But there are other diplomats that at times don't always remember to make other people feel comfortable. So I encourage you to speak respectfully and use formal language, to be kind and seek to include others, to share facts and use credible information. It's grounding for us to all be utilizing real sources. To ask questions and really mean those questions and engage with other people. And to remember that it's better to say one thing well and to add value rather than focusing on tearing people down. And in that same note of formality and diplomacy, you want to start your speech with something like honorable chair and fellow delegates when you're giving that first opening speech. And with that, I will turn it back over to Georgina about the importance of avoiding attacking, or what might feel like attacking during a Model UN simulation or during a real world debate.
So just as important as making others feel comfortable, you should always avoid attacking others, especially in a Model UN committee, but throughout your daily life. The United Nations was envisioned as the world's leading peacemaking body. Therefore, attacks have absolutely no place in any Model UN committee. So in terms of Model UN committees, you should never do any of the following. You should never directly attack other delegates, for example, calling them a racist. And you may have seen some examples of this during our first demonstration. of undiplomatic behavior. You should also avoid belittling others and making them feel less important than the diplomats that they're stepping into the roles of, as well as less important or worthy as an individual. There's no place for that in any diplomatic forum. For example, calling someone else a snowflake doesn't accomplish anything and doesn't make them feel positive nor able to come up with these solutions. You should also avoid coupling unrelated issues. An example of this might be going back to our gender equality in the workforce debate. You wouldn't want to get into a sub-conversation about whether or not to legalize abortion. That's a completely separate topic, and through getting into that, the debate would have the option to go off the rails. So avoid coupling unrelated issues to ensure that everything stays on that same page. You should also always avoid using negative terminology, and terminology that would frame that debate from that negative perspective. For example, the third world has a huge negative connotation and is a completely outdated term when referring to developing countries. And finally, avoid using charged terms, the example here being fake news. That instinctively comes into people's heads and creates that politically charged dynamic. Instead, choose positive alternatives, the example in this case being misinformation. So the general overall thought here, treat everyone else in your committee with the respect owed to every diplomat. And not just every diplomat, but every individual. We're all global citizens stepping into these roles. So rather than attacking others, strive to work together. So with that, we're gonna move into our second student demonstration and have our students show you exactly what to do and how to take into account a lot of these options and a lot of these aspects that we've already covered. So they're gonna step into the true roles of these diplomats and show off their true diplomatic Model UN selves. And once again, I'm gonna ask that the rest of you refrain from posting in the chat box during this time, as that will also be used as part of the demonstration. So with that, if the three of you are ready, are there any points or motions on the floor for me at this time? Any points or motions? Throw up a raise hand function. Yes, Delegate of the United States, what motion do you have?
Motion for a 2-minute moderated caucus with a 30-second speaking time on the subject of increasing opportunities for women.
That is absolutely in order. All delegates in favor of this moderated caucus, hit that yes check for me at this time. All those opposed, hit that no X. This motion clearly passes. With that, Delegate of the United States, would you like to speak first?
Yes. Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, the U.S. believes that the best way to resolve this issue is to increase funding for technological developments, such as increasing access to cleaning supplies, food and cooking options that are much faster and more efficient to make, and laundry stuff such as washing machines and dryers instead of having to wash things by hand, as this will make it much easier for women to go to work, and they will have much more time to do things such as work instead of spending all of their time in the home. We believe that it is much more efficient to use technology instead of policies such as maternity leaves, as technology will have much more tangible effects and repercussions, and this will allow them to improve in the work life, whereas maternity leave would simply give them time to things at home and could potentially provide unfair advantage to women, as both men and women typically would not receive both. This is why we believe that technology would be best, as it would be more equal and while still predominantly helping women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of the United States. All those delegates wishing to speak next, throw up a raise hand function for me at this time. All those delegates wishing to speak, throw up that raise hand function for me at this time. Saudi Arabia, you're recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In the past 10 years, Saudi Arabia has taken great strides in closing the gender gap. In 2011, we officially gave women the right to vote, and in 2018, women were able to get a driver's license of their own. We are aware that previous restrictions on women may not be completely reflective of the modern world, and therefore are making an attempt to remedy that as our king and council best see fit. However, we implore the other nations of the world to respect our autonomy and not encroach on our decision-making. We are an Islamic nation that makes the best choices for our people at the time and may have different customs than Western nations do, and that's okay. We will happily join you in creating a resolution that allows countries to address the prominent issues of child marriage, violence against women, and gender disparity as they best see fit. Thank you so much, and I am open to be privately addressed for any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Saudi Arabia. All those delegates wishing to speak next, throw up a raise hand function for me at this time. Delegate of France, you're recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you. Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, the delegation of France is committed to enabling all women and girls worldwide to have access to free education and better job opportunities. Regarding maternity leave, women in France are allowed anywhere between 16 to 26 weeks with 100% paid maternity leave. We would love to work with the United States in order to help them improve their maternity leave, as right now they currently have 0 weeks of paid. So with this, France calls for other nations to work together to normalize and improve maternity leave worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of France. We have one speaker remaining in this moderated caucus. All those delegates wishing to take the final speech, throw up a raise hand function for me at this time. Delegate of Saudi Arabia, you're recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. I hear what France and the US are both saying, and I think that the subject of maternity leave is a very present one. Saudi Arabia also, as France does, gives their mothers a paid maternity leave. And we would be open to perhaps an exception for the autonomy of countries regarding expecting mothers and their maternity leave in terms of giving them maternity leave no matter what country they're in. However, we are open to both sides, and this is not a crucial topic for us. So we are open to debating about this with any delegates here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Saudi Arabia. And with that, this moderated caucus has elapsed. And I hope that that gave all of you a positive example of what diplomacy can and should look like, especially within Model UN committees and between countries that may have differing opinions and differing viewpoints on some of these topics. So this takes us into our last element of becoming a diplomat, which is taking time to reflect. Every Model UN committee, you should be learning something, whether it's about a new country policy or a new perspective or a new outlook on some of these topics. So always ask yourself the following questions. What did representing another country teach me about a perspective I might not have known about? What did I learn from those beliefs? And what did I learn that I may not have known before? Did I strive to build bridges? Did I strive to work with other delegates rather than tearing them down? And how can I use what I've learned to take positive and implementable action? Now, I'd like each of you, our participants, to actually also take this time to reflect and post in the chat box. What did you learn from our second moderated caucus? And what did you learn from how our students just embodied those elements of being a diplomat? And that takes us into our final and most important question. How can I be a better diplomat, both in Model UN and in the real world? In every conversation that I have and in everything I do, how can I strive to embody these principles? With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Laura Beth.
Thank you very much, Georgina. So please feel free to drop into the chat if there's anything you learned or took away from seeing those different examples. But I also want to go ahead and share with you some resources that you can utilize to ensure that simulations that you run and your real world debates go smoothly. As a facilitator, please check out the facilitator checklist in the back of the guide. And again, Kana will drop in the chat the link to the guide for anybody to check out. In the facilitator checklist, there are resources to help you define diplomacy for your conference. There's also resources to help you set non-negotiables and rules and to help you run a diplomatic debate. Additionally, there is a checklist for students that are participating in a simulation to help them learn the basics of diplomacy, and to also make sure they're prepared to be diplomatic in committee and to ultimately step into the shoes of a diplomat and to learn about world issues. And if you're excited about these different topics and ideas, I hope that you really take this acronym and what you've learned to heart today and be prepared to become more diplomatic and to debate diplomatically. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kevin Felix Chan, our CEO and co-founder of Best Delegate, and he's going to share about one of the upcoming opportunities to debate diplomatically and to participate in a Model UN team this spring. Kevin, would you please share with everyone?
Awesome. First of all, let's give Laura Beth and Georgina and all the students a big round of virtual applause. Just hit the reaction of clapping because they did an awesome job teaching this. And I think this is the beginning of learning it. You know, I wish I had this when I was a student in doing Model UN, and that I could do more Model UN that I could just do at my own school. And so that's one of the reasons why we actually created the Model UN teams is we need opportunities to practice this in our own teams and our own clubs before we even get to the conferences. Because the conferences is when we reflect our behavior. And so I would love to invite everyone to join the Model UN Teams. It's a new program at Best Delegate where you get a chance to practice public speaking, including how to debate on controversial topics, debate world issues, gain confidence, make new friends, lead a Model UN team, and get yourself set up to go to conferences. This opportunity for MUN Teams is open to everyone who wants to join. So what we really want to embody is that element of feeling like part of the team. If you currently aren't part of a Model UN team, this is it for you. This is your chance to be part of that team experience where you get to work together, build that friendship with each other, and then go to MUN conferences together. Or if you are part of a team, you can actually still join this. It's similar to being in like if you guys play sports, it's similar to having like your school team and then also a club team, like a private club team. This is where you can get that additional practice and really excel your skills beyond what you do in school, especially if your school is not really active in Model UN this year or is not planning to go to that many conferences in the spring. What will happen in the MUN Teams experience is that it will meet once a week starting February 15th. And to get training and preparation leading up to your first conference in March, you'll be attending one of the virtual conferences, either the beginner level or the advanced level. And then after the first conference, you'll get a chance to reflect, prepare, train for your second conference in April, which is also going to be either the beginner conference if you're new or the USA MUN Invitational if you're advanced. And then at the end of the semester, celebrate all the team successes as well. Enrollment's actually open right now. Early enrollment ends on January 15th. And we have 5 different teams. So at the high school level, if you are ages 14 through 18, you can join the beginner MUN team. So this is perfect for those who are brand new to Model UN. You might not have an MUN team available. And this is a chance for you to get that training and actually go to 2 conferences this semester. If you have an MUN team or if you are advanced and you want to just do more MUN, the advanced MUN team is going to be it for you. They're going to go compete at 2 conferences, the Canada MUN Invitational in March and then the USA MUN Invitational in April. So we got hundreds of students signed up for these conferences already. So it's an awesome chance to just meet students from around the world and to debate. And then also one cool one is the MUN Leadership Team. And for those high school students that really want to get trained and certified on how to chair an MUN committee and then actually chair at these conferences and even serve in crisis staffing roles at these conferences, this MUN Leadership Team is the first time we're ever offering this type of program. And it's a super awesome opportunity to get that chairing experience and leadership roles. If you're in middle school right now, we also have a beginner MUN team. So if you want to get started with doing Model UN, this is the opportunity for you to get started. And then for those middle school students that have MUN experience and want to challenge your skills, definitely join the middle school advanced MUN team so that you can challenge yourself, meet other middle school students and compete at these conferences. So I'm excited for these teams to be happening this year. Welcome everybody to do them, regardless if you have an MUN team or not at your own school. And hopefully this brings you more opportunities to practice debating diplomatically this year.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I hope all of you are excited to keep debating through Model UN and to debate diplomatically. And now what I'd love to do is for the next few minutes, open things up to a short question and answer session. So Georgina, our student leaders, and Kevin as well are going to help to answer some of your questions. And we had some questions submitted before webinar, and we also have some that have been submitted during the chat box. So we're going to tackle a few of those questions. If you have a question, please keep yourself on mute and just drop it into the chat box. And the first question I've seen is from Jessica asking, what do you do when your opinion differs dramatically from the country that you're representing? What do you do when that situation occurs? Do one of our student leaders, Jess, would you please tackle that for us and get us started on how do you handle that situation?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, this is a great question and one that I have, come across many times in my Model UN career. And actually, I've found it's easier to approach a delegate with or a country with a differing position than yourself, because you actually already know the person who is going to be your worst enemy. You can put yourself into a different role, pretend you're someone else than yourself. You can be, you know, whoever Michael Greenfeld from the UK instead of Jess Newberg from the United States. And you can come at that approaching yourself and whoever may differ from you the same way you would want someone with that differing opinion to approach someone of your character. You think, what could this person possibly say to make me understand their opinion and take their side on this? And with that, you can sort of fully understand the different sides of the diplomatic scenario and have like a much more complete view of the topic. So I actually think it's pretty useful to have a different opinion than your own, and to be very open-minded with it and know that this is just a simulation and you're going about it just like you would at a debate, just trying to find the information that best supports your cause.
Thank you very much, Jess. Another question that we've seen is, as a delegate and as a chair, what do you do when you see undiplomatic behavior happening and you see a debate starting to go off the rails? So I'll let Georgina answer first as a chair, and then I'd love to hear from one of our students as well.
Absolutely. So from the chairing standpoint, if ever I notice that things are starting to get heated, a little tense, and potentially off topic, I'll take a moment to pause the moderated caucus and take a step back and remind all of my participants, Model UN is a fun activity. In and of itself, this is an extracurricular activity. So we're all here to strive to have an enjoyable experience, and we should be here to create that experience. And remind delegates, create that decorum. Ensure that you're touching on these topics respectfully. And if at any point you maybe feel like this is an opinion I don't agree with, take a step back, reflect on that opinion, and learn from it, rather than step in and make that tense. So it's so important to consistently remind your delegates, these are my expectations. I want you to have fun and be learning, and to avoid all that tense environment.
Thank you, Georgina. And one of our students, what can you do as a student when that happens to help things be more diplomatic? Hannah, would you please share?
I would say, as a student, although you should try to avoid, situations like that at all costs, if that comes out, I would take that as an opportunity to show that you're a leader as the chair, because if you can help moderate stuff, then people in your committee and the chair will look at you and be like, oh, this is a person who knows what they're doing. They know how to be diplomatic. This is someone that I should be working with. Then also, I think it's really important to remember that chances are the person doesn't actually believe that, or they're just representing their country's beliefs. And you both probably have way more in common than you would think, or neither if you are truly representing beliefs. So you need to remember to take a step back and acknowledge that this is not the end of the world. And then it's okay to have different beliefs, and you can just try to work with someone else instead, and acknowledge that maybe you can agree to disagree in some situations.
Absolutely. It's important to remember we're all people, and we all have different views because of our backgrounds and our beliefs and different factors. So at our core, try to remember that people are different from politics and different from the viewpoints they're representing, and focus on debating the issues rather than attacking the people. Great question. We also got a question from Vivian. How can we actually apply these lessons to our daily life, to debates that we might be having with our family or with friends about sensitive and controversial topics? Georgina, would you like to start us off on that one?
Absolutely. I think consistently when I consider approaching others, back to those best delegate core values, global citizenship and that idea of becoming a diplomat is just so important. And so in the case that, say, you're at a family Thanksgiving dinner, for example, and you realize I definitely disagree with this family member, again, take a moment and try and understand where they're coming from, and try and understand where those beliefs stem from. And rather than immediately fighting them on it or creating that disagreement, instead try and have that productive conversation and ask questions that allow them to explain their viewpoints and come up with those sustainable and those positive conversations, rather than just use implicit biases or opinions as you go into those conversations.
Thank you very much, Georgina. And I see a few more questions that have popped up in the chat, and we'll come back to those at the very end if there's time. But the next thing that I want to do is share a few additional resources with all of you. And Kevin just dropped in the chat, and we'll drop it once more, the link to learn more about Model United Nations Teams. That's one of the great ways that you can participate in Model UN simulations and learning. If a team is not the right fit for you, if you don't have the time or the ability to do that this semester, we also do have virtual conferences that are one-day opportunities where you can sign up just for the day to participate in a simulation. And the next set of conferences that we have coming up are in February that you can still sign up for. We have a training conference for new students on February 21st, and we have the Midwest Model UN Invitational on February 20th. That's open to students from all over the world. And both of these, if you'd like to attend either as an individual delegate or with your school, the deadline to sign up is January 15th. And Kana will also drop the link in the chat for you to learn more and sign up for these virtual conferences. They're a great way to practice debating and meet new people. And if you're planning on coming to one of these conferences or any other conference, it's important to learn how to prepare. And we have a great resource guide on how to prepare for virtual MUN conferences. I recommend you check it out. One key thing is knowing how to debate diplomatically, but there are lots of other great fundamentals that can help you prepare. And this guide will walk you through the step-by-step process. I also want to share these webinars that we are running are a monthly feature that Best Delegate is doing to help support the community. And the next one is going to be on February 2nd. And it is all about a decade of teaching Model UN. Best Delegate has been around for more than 10 years now, and we are celebrating that. And our co-founders, Ryan Villanueva and Kevin Felix Chan, will be here along with student, parent, and teacher alumni to share some stories and experiences with Model UN. You won't want to miss it. We've got a great series of guests that'll be joining for that as well. And Kana will also drop the link if you want to go ahead and sign up. If not, we'll also be sending that out over email shortly. But essentially, if you have any questions about our upcoming programs, or if you have an idea for a community webinar, we want to hear from you. We're here to support the Model UN community and to help you grow and learn. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions or ideas. And with that, I really just want to take the time to thank everyone. We truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come here. I know we had over 150 people join us tonight to learn how to debate diplomatically, and even more watching this after the fact. And we really appreciate you taking the time to learn and to help make our world a better and more diplomatic place. I'm going to hang out for just a few more minutes. If anyone has any other questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat, and we will be answering those as well. And we hope to see many of you on our Model UN teams and at our upcoming virtual debates. Thank you again for joining us. We truly appreciate it. And thank you so much to our student leaders, to Georgina and to Kevin as well for helping to facilitate tonight's webinar on how to debate diplomatically.